So good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'm Steve Donovan, the Director of Alumni Relations at Trinity. Thanks so much for joining us on a weekday afternoon. Hopefully it's an opportunity for some of you to come inside and escape the extreme summer heat and humidity that many of us are experiencing on both coasts, I think. 2 years ago this week, I was in Rome visiting the Trinity campus for the first time and meeting the incredible staff who make it all happen. I was there to help plan the in-person 50th anniversary celebration we had hoped to have in March of 2020, and it was extremely hot and humid in Rome that week as well. The pandemic forced us to postpone that in-person celebration for now, but we plan to reschedule for sometime in the spring of 2022, so keep your eyes and ears open. We haven't set dates yet, but we hope to soon. For the last 5 months, we've been able to come together virtually for Trinity Rome events that have been so inspiring and heartwarming. We're grateful to the hundreds of you who have joined for those conversations and who have shared your incredible stories and memories of the lasting impact your Rome experiences have had on your lives and careers. Today, we'll bring the virtual portion of that celebration to an end with an extraordinary group of accomplished alumni of the program. And I have the honor of turning the event over in a minute to Stephen Marth, who is the director of the Trinity Rome campus. Stephen has guided us through the virtual celebration events with the skill and grace that all who have experienced the Rome program know is its signature hallmark, the remarkable staff. And we're especially grateful to Stephen today as he's taking time from a beach vacation of his own on America's shores, actually, to be with us. But I also believe that the season's first tropical storm formed over his beach yesterday, so he too is probably happy to be inside for a while. So Stephen, it's my pleasure to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve Donovan and the Office of Alumni Relations have been central to the organization of these wonderful virtual events that have brought us together on numerous Tuesdays to celebrate a place that is very dear to all of us, Trinity College Rome campus. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. Today's event, When in Rome, it represents a particularly special Tuesdays in Rome. Students have and always will be the heart of and soul of the Rome campus. Today, we'll have an opportunity to take a closer look at their perspective by speaking with a group of 5 highly accomplished alumni, whom I will introduce in just a moment. So during today's event, I will begin by asking our panelists some questions about their time in Rome. I'd like to give them as much space as possible to share their memories and thoughts on the program with us. And I hope the conversation will allow them to interact and build on one another's comments so that we end up with a choral impression of the experience of studying at the Rome campus. We'd also like to include all of you in this conversation. So we've created a word cloud using a software called Mentimeter, and I've put a link in the chat. You can go ahead and open that link, and during the first part of the event, please take a moment to write in 1 or up to 3 words related to your experiences in Rome. So in the latter part of today's panel, we'll reveal the word cloud and ask our participants, our panelists, to comment on some of the memories that you've shared. In just a moment, we'll bring in our panelists and begin talking with them about their time in Rome. As you've seen in the invitation notes, each of them has a very impressive biography. So for purposes of brevity, I'll introduce them with their class years and titles, and we'll learn more about their careers and their lives during our conversation. Just 2 quick things before we begin. We've recently confirmed that our program will be welcoming students back to Rome in the fall. So after a year and a half of remote activities, we will finally have a group back on the Aventine, and we're super excited for that opportunity. As usual, about half the group will come from Trinity and around half from visiting institutions. So this brings me also to my second note that I wanted to make here in the introduction, and that is that although our alumni base includes a large group of students from visiting institutions, as has been exemplified by all of you who have connected over the weeks for the virtual events, our panelists today are all Trinity graduates. I'd like all of the alumni from our visiting institutions to know that we really appreciate you, and we're delighted that you've remained connected with the program, and that perhaps for a future in-person event, it would be wonderful to involve some of you in a panel of this sort. as you are such an important part of our identity and our history as a program. So with no further delay and in alphabetical order, our amazing panel of alums for today's event are Danny Meyer, a Trinity graduate from the class of 1980 and a parent of a 2020 Trinity graduate. Danny is the founder and CEO of Union Square Hospitality Group and the founder of Shake Shack. Elizabeth Rosato, Liz, is a Trinity graduate from the class of 1990. She is a special agent in the criminal division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and was recently FBI attaché in Rome, where she met with our Rome campus students on various occasions. Tony Scavongelli, a Trinity graduate from the class of 1983, is the Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of Homesite Group Incorporated and American Family Direct. Jane Swift is a Trinity College graduate from the class of 1987 and holds an honorary degree from Trinity from 2020. She is also a parent of a current Trinity student from the class of 2023. She is senior advisor at Whiteboard Advisors and former governor of Massachusetts. So let's going out again in alphabetical order. Danny, Liz, Tony, Jane, thank you so much for joining us and welcome back virtually to Rome campus. To begin our conversation, I'd like to ask you all to take around 2 to 3 minutes to tell us a bit about your time at Trinity Hartford and your decision, the reasons for coming to study in Rome. So let's follow that same order. So Danny, if you could start us off.
Sure. So good to see all of you, and it's great to virtually be back in Rome. I just got back from Italy this weekend for my first trip in 2 years, and it took 5 negative tests to both get into and out of Italy, and every single one of them was worth it. The pasta is still good. Those streets feel very, very safe. I would say that the country reminds me a little bit of where New York City is, maybe a little bit behind even, because both of us got the pandemic hit our shores pretty early on. And so justifiably, there's a lot of concern and care, but people are out and about, the restaurants are full, people are taking their masks off and enjoying restaurants again. So I was a political science major at Trinity College, and we were very, very fortunate to those of us in the department to have an excellent relationship with a certain professor by the name of Albert Gassman, whose specialty was international politics. And we were able to convince Professor Gassman, probably 6 or 7 of us, to work with us to petition the school to create a new curriculum for the Barbieri Center that would center around international politics. And I think most of you probably know that when the Barbieri Center launched, the primary areas of focus were the spoken language of Italian and art history, which obviously make a lot of sense. And so we succeeded, obviously, and we created a fantastic curriculum where over the course of 1 semester, we had an incredibly immersive experience, both academically. We had an internship at the Food and Agriculture Organization run by the United Nations, which is right down the hill from the campus, and had all kinds of off-campus libraries in which we could study international politics and Italian politics. And it was just a magical time to do that. Some of you may remember that in 1978, Aldo Moro was shot down by the Red Brigades, and the city and the whole country, for that matter, were incredibly politicized at that point. And so this was just a year after that. This was 1979 that we were there. And so it was just a remarkable time to study not only Italy's role in world politics throughout history, but also the absolutely crazy and almost incomprehensible history of Italian politics themselves, which were just roaring at that point. And what I can tell you personally is that It was the most immersive experience of my life, both academically and socially. Uh, we didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have Wi-Fi or computers. And so you only had one choice, and that was to go deeper, deeper into the language, which we took a lot of, deeper into the culture, in my case, deeper into restaurants. And I don't have any question in my mind that it was that semester that led me to my career in the restaurant business. I remained very, very focused, even in my career, on fighting hunger. And I guarantee you that the papers that we were asked to write based on our research at the Food and Agriculture Organization led me to really making my philanthropic focus in my adult life one of fighting hunger.
Thank you so much, Danny, for sharing that with us. I'm just realizing now, actually, that so many of you on the panel are not necessarily did not follow up with the humanities, and it's interesting because the international studies and political science is such an important part of what we do in Rome, but it's not what one would immediately think of when they think of a semester abroad in Rome. So I'm glad that you highlighted that part of your time there. Let's Liz, would you like to tell us a little bit about your time in Hartford and then your decision to go to Rome, and if you want a bit about Rome as well?
Certainly. Thank you. And I also have to thank Danny for telling me about the curriculum change with political science, because I directly benefited from that a few years later when I went in 1988. So I love Trinity in Hartford. I love the small classes, the attention and the care that the professors gave to each class. And during my sophomore year, I believe, I had started to look into art history, possibly a minor, and I was so enthralled with the instructors and the material, and just to see that so many of these works of art, sculpture, paintings, everything was in Italy. And then I read a little bit about the Barbieri Center and spoke with some friends and classmates, and I was really determined to go. I always liked to travel, but that was my first real trip, independent, again, no cell phones, no calling home all the time, no GPS. And the convent, the school, was a magical place. So just that the city became your classroom, I think that was the most amazing part. Number one, the friendships you made. We had a good mix of both Trinity and other students that were there that fall. It was a tremendously close group. And the instructors that we had for language. And to this day, and that also sparked my love of Italian language, which I then studied over the course of my adult life, which brought me full circle back to Rome beginning in 2017. So just to be able to live in that city, and it's a live functioning city with chaos and still the political craziness, but the beauty of the culture, the food, the people, and to live that and learn from it was an incredible experience. It was extremely and deeply affecting. And it sparked in me the desire to travel more, to go deeper, just always wanting to see something new and immerse yourself in a different culture. I ended up studying Italian for the remainder of my junior and senior year, and then took adult ed classes, things of that nature. Now, you mentioned I was a 100% liberal arts graduate from Trinity, so that is not a typical lead-in to federal law enforcement. Interestingly enough, my classmate and Rome campus classmate, Ed Troiano, we reconnected. He joined the ATF, so it was a little bit of strange cross-pollination there. But I'd like to think that I bring a bit of that liberal arts critical thinking to federal law enforcement, which I think we'd all agree is very much needed. So it was an interesting, how can I take this Rome experience, this language, all these things, and translate it into my career? So as an agent, I worked my way through working criminal cases, counterterrorism cases, and then the opportunity arose to put in for a legal attaché job. And I can tell you that the day in February in 2016, when I got the call that said you were going to go to Rome and live there for 3 years, was probably one of the best of my career. And we went, as a family, and even now, just doing this talk and hearing about Rome again, it was a very difficult departure last fall, because it became our home. Doesn't matter where we live, but Rome was our home. And it was so nice to reconnect with the school, with you and the rest of your staff, and especially the students, to bring the experience that I have now and to see that in their faces. So I'm so thrilled that students going forward will be able to have that chance as well.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, we were incredibly lucky to have Liz in Rome for a couple of years. It's not often, I don't think, that students get to do their safety and security briefing with with an FBI agent who's an attaché at the embassy, and also a graduate of the same program. So it was amazing to reconnect. And Liz also came up for a sort of homecoming evening with some other alums who were in the area, and talk with students about the program. And we've actually had a number of students write in asking for Liz's information who might be interested in a similar type career. So
Wonderful.
yeah, it was wonderful to have you in Rome. Great. Tony, can you tell us a bit about your time in Hartford and the decision to go to Rome?
Sure thing. First of all, thanks to everyone for inviting me to be on the panel, and I just want to underscore what fantastic news that is to know that the program is opening back up in the fall. So that's really, really great. My time at Hartford was great. I had a great experience at Trinity. I was a philosophy major, in undergrad, but I don't really have, a great story for wanting to go to Rome, like what drove it. It's my last name's Scavengelli. I mean, I was like, let me go back to the roots. My grandparents had all emigrated from Italy, from my father's side, Foggia. So there was just a little bit of nostalgia there, a little interest, and I guess kind of like Liz, it was sort of my first experience in what I would say would be some significant travel and that type of thing. So it was exciting for me. I did it a little differently, though. My experiences sort of comes, it's a couple of discrete pieces that come together. So I first applied to the summer program, and a critical aspect at the time for me was that I was able to take enough courses off of what I needed to graduate to make it net neutral from a dollars and cents standpoint, right? So a big piece was really, I wasn't adding overall to the cost of the education. It was able to move it all in. So that was a critical piece. And I was just going over for the summer for, I think it was a 6-week program, and that was it. And I just completely fell in love with the program, with the city, with the country. When I think of the Rome program, there's so many great things you can say, but the first things that come to my mind are the people and the friendships. Livio Pestilli, Francesco Lombardi, Franca Camis. I mean, the people are really what made the program. So it got to the point where I said, "Hey, can I not leave? Can I stay here for the next semester?" So this is right, and they kind of looked at me, and I remember Livio was just like, "I don't think anyone's ever done that before, but maybe we can figure something out." So I ended up just staying for the following semester as well, and then I think I wanted to do it again, but they made me go home to graduate. So I went back to Hartford to graduate. And then what I did was I returned back after I graduated, and I got a job there, somewhat working for the program a little bit. I worked for the Elder Hostel program, but also just like a nightclub, the Old Goldoni, and I was teaching English, and I was bartending, and I was doing whatever I can. And, Francesco would help me out, and just trying to put together an overall living. So when I think about sort of the experience, and the whole thing probably was a couple of years, and although they're discrete pieces, there was that summer, there was that semester, there was the post-graduation piece. None of it would have been possible if I didn't do it in the first place. And the breadth of experiences that went through with all that were, I think, as Danny was saying, it was one of those immersive things in every sense that it was just, it's one of those sort of 4 or 5 things that you look at that are sort of life changing for you. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, it's uncommon to have students stay in Rome for more than a semester, but it's wonderful when it happens. I'm not sure if we've ever had any stay as long as you did, but yeah, I think that students get very attached, obviously, to the life on campus and their friends, and it's sometimes hard to, one, imagine going away, and two, stay away for too long. So maybe when you do have that sort of immersive, engagement with the city, it makes it easier, and we're working to do more of that. So okay, thank you, Tony. Next, Jane, could you tell us a bit about your time at Trinity Hartford and your decision to go to Rome?
Sure. So like Liz, I guess I have Danny to thank for being able to go to Rome. And like everyone said, it was the defining experience of my undergraduate career. So I'm thrilled to be here. I was an American Studies major. I always wanted to go abroad. And when I was starting to look into programs, I was like, yeah, it might be a little hard to justify going abroad as an American Studies major, but I had a concentration in political science, and you had to do some work around comparative cultures. And so the political science piece, and also getting those language courses in. So a little bit similar to Tony and some others, I was a full financial aid student at Trinity. So I also was trying to figure out what was possible for me. I had never traveled abroad. No one in my immediate family had traveled abroad. My grandmother had traveled abroad. She had come in the other direction. She had immigrated from Italy now, it's Italy now. When I told my grandmother that I was going to study in Rome, there was a little bit of a dust up in the family because she came to the United States after a war where she had lived in Austria, and Italy had actually taken over the part of northern Italy that she lived in. And so there was still some raw feelings decades and decades later from particularly her older brother. They had been relocated to a war camp, and their family had been relocated. So going to Rome was a little bit controversial, but I have to say the immersive experiences, I had to go and look it up because it's been a long time, but we had a Professor Andreotti. Her father was a prime minister in Italy, I think twice for a nanosecond, however long people serve in those positions. And she was the most impressive, brilliant Italian person, but she had this lasting impact on me. I was, a Catholic working class kid, and there were times at Trinity when I first arrived that I felt a little bit like a duck out of water. And I probably carried that with me unknowingly all the way into my junior year in Rome. And she gave this great speech after our first test in Italy and in her Italian history course, where I think our performance probably belied that we had spent more time enjoying the culture and immersing ourselves in it than perhaps studying for the content of her test. And she gave us, I can remember and sort of see her giving us this speech about how pathetic our performance was, and about how we were the most entitled and privileged students from the richest nation in the world. And it was one of those seminal moments in your life, because I had spent a lot of time at Trinity where I had realized that I was not a privileged person. I came from a small working class, blue collar city where, the fact that my dad's family ran a plumbing company, I had always grown up thinking, we had quite a lot, but in comparison, when I arrived at Trinity, my frame of reference had changed. And then in her class, my frame of reference changed for the better again. And I realized had been given enormous opportunities, including this unbelievable opportunity to study. I traveled with some friends to the part of northern Italy that my grandmother's family was from. A year later, went back with my mom and my grandmother, and actually we found some of my grandmother's relatives, and so I've kept in touch with them ever since. Just a phenomenal opportunity to have to travel so far to realize the things you've been given, right? And the opportunities for to make a difference and to make an impact. And I might have had a little bit of fun. I got really nervous, Tony, when you said you were back in Rome, probably around 1985, maybe working in an establishment. I was like, oof. Luckily, no cell phones, no cameras back in those days, because I've always been grateful that all of that technology came later, or I would never have achieved anything that would have had me on a panel like this talking about my days in Rome, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Jane. That I found that really interesting to hear about this idea of reflecting on your both your identity, your understanding of yourself, but also others and other cultures' understanding of you and what your identity might be when you go to a foreign country. And I think that's such an important part of going abroad. You maybe don't even realize that folks, you have an identity and you know what your identity is maybe within your group or, at Trinity, but then you're in Rome, all of a sudden you realize that people see you in a completely different way, and you have to think through that. And I think it's a really meaningful experience for students who are over in Rome. Thank you. So I'd also like to introduce, so we have a fifth panelist. We weren't sure he would be able to join us, but he's made it and we're very excited. So welcome to Sean Wooden. Sean is a Trinity graduate from the class of 1991, and he is the Connecticut State Treasurer. So Sean, welcome. We've, in this first round of questions, we've asked everyone to speak for 2 to 3 minutes about their time at Trinity Hartford, and tell us about the decision to go to Rome, and if you want a bit about your experience in Rome as well.
First, apologies for my delay and a warning that I have internet issues. I'm in the middle of a move and I'm connected by my phone, which is low on power. So I will talk fast, but both, Trinity Hartford and Trinity Rome, they're kind of like they're similar in how much both of them opened up my world to new worlds. But they're so different, right? So I grew up in the north in the Hartford, right? So I had to go way to the other side of town to go to Trinity College, and similar to Jane, except maybe when I went to school, I knew my family had nothing, but it's just a different world, and turned out to be this amazing experience where I grew, learned. I challenged myself. I was challenged, and I have forever been a proponent of the small liberal arts college experience. And I love what Trinity has done more broadly by being that small liberal arts community, but with a global perspective. And which brings me to Trinity Rome. It was a philosophy professor, I believe it was Helen Lang, who encouraged me. I didn't know anything about the program, but towards the end of the semester, she encouraged me to apply, and I did. It was nothing that I had thought about in terms of going abroad internationally, and it was hands down, in the top of my list of best things that happened to me while at Trinity. And when I say it's similar but so different, and we go way on the other side of the world. And I'd never even traveled internationally, and end up in Rome, show up by myself. Of course, met, and I was there for the summer experience, and so we actually stayed at a different area than the convent. but the combination of, I attribute like my lifelong love for history, for the arts, and just seeing a bigger world to that experience, right? In America, I mean, the thing that struck me, like when you look at the the Colosseum, the Pantheon, all of these places are like, wow. And I thought New was old, right? But it really gave me and everyone a sense of perspective of how young America was, in fact, compared to the rest of the world, or so much of the rest of the world. And I actually never thought I'd be interested in art, right? It's just not my thing. But it became one of my things through that experience and through learning and combining lots of passions. It was also, I don't know if it was as fun as what Jane had, but it was very, very fun. And I got invited to lots of things. I thought I was a hot ticket or something. I would be at Piazza Nirvana. I'd meet some women. They'd invite me, but I later learned they just wanted to invite me to a party to practice their English and to show their other friends that they had an American friend. But that was it. But anyway, terrific experience, lots of fun, lots of learning, in terms of food, culture, and actually learning with fellow Trinity students, like in that environment. I had two roommates, talk about three different people. But this program put us all in a room together where we debated the world. So hands down, a terrific experience. And I'm so happy that, we're celebrating this anniversary and so many students have had the opportunity to experience it, and hopefully many more will in the future.
Thank you so much, Sean. We're very happy that you could join us, and we're in this next round of questions. I was thinking that I would just tell you the three questions I had in mind, and you've touched on some of these things already. But we could you can respond to one or two or all of them together if you'd like. Whatever inspires you, and then we'll move to the word cloud and see what everyone's put in, because I know that also attendees will want to participate. I see folks raising their hand and things. So, but maybe we'll let Sean start. Sean, in case we lose you with your phone there, we'll let you start off this round. So, here are the questions that I wanted to ask everyone to respond to, and feel free also to ask questions to one another, or interact with what the others are saying. So. Question one, what were the defining characteristics and most memorable moments of your time in Rome? Question two, what impacts do you think your Rome experience has had on your life and career? And number three, can you share a bit of your perspectives on the benefits of a study abroad program, both then and now, for our students at Trinity? It's a lot, I know. So feel free to.
Yes. So I think from perspective, it was just that different worldview and understanding that as an American, we're just this little piece of the globe, right? And we're a little piece of the world history, right? And we're just babies in that journey, right? I mean, we're a pretty amazing experiment and for a young country, but nevertheless, putting it in that context. One of the most lasting things for me, I came back to Trinity and became a history major. So it really, I always had an interest generally, but it really kind of cemented that for me. And I think for everyone, I would encourage kind of participation in some study abroad program. When I think back and think how much I would regret, like knowing as much as I came to know about the Trinity Rome program, and I'm sure some of the other study abroad programs are similar, and having not taken advantage of that while at Trinity, because we say we're going to do all this stuff and then life gets busy, and just to be young, a student, and really, really open-minded to have that experience. I just think it's perhaps pretty impossible to replicate in a different context, and to spend that much time in a different location.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Danny, could I let you add to that or respond to those questions as well next?
First of all, Sean, great to see you. We would have had a good time together there, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Danny.
I'm going to take this on a slightly different tangent, and that is that the year before I went to the Barbieri Center, I had gone to Rome for the summer to work as a tour guide. And I was living in a hotel, going to the airport to pick up cranky tourists, every few days. And then I would have them for 4 or 5 days. And so I really got to know the city quite well. And I got to take them to different places on the tour bus, learn to speak some Italian. But that particular summer, Pope Paul died. Pope Paul, who had been Pope since, I think, the early 60s or something like that. And since I was living right next to the Vatican, I went to his funeral, which anybody could go to. It was quite a fascinating experience in the middle of St. Peter's Square. And that whole summer was really inspirational in my desire to find some way to get Trinity to allow me to go as a poli-sci student. So then the very next semester while I was there, I forgot one very important thing. Some very few weeks after Pope Paul died, Pope John Paul I died. Some of you may not remember that, but we had a pope for just a handful of weeks, and there are still questions as to how and why he died so quickly. So I went to that funeral as well. So now I've been to 2 papal funerals, which most Catholics have never done, never mind a Jewish guy from St. Louis, Missouri. And now I get to Trinity, to the Barbieri Center, and I'm assigned my room, and I'm sleeping under a glow-in-the-dark crucifix, which I thought was kind of cool. It was just me and the crucifix in a bathroom that doubled as a shower. Some of you may have had that experience as well. And one day we got a notice that our convent was going to be visited by Pope John Paul II, and he was coming to bless the nuns. And we students were invited to go to the little chapel in back of our school to be blessed by the Pope. So now I'm like setting a record because I've gone to 2 papal funerals. I'm getting blessed by the next Pope, who's one day going to be a saint, for God's sakes. And I get up on a chair to take pictures with my camera of the Pope. I still have the pictures. What you don't know is that I got leveled by one of the Pope's guards because you are not supposed to get up on a chair. My camera went crashing to the ground after that. So I'll end this because what happened next was I decided I'm going to set a record, and I want to be the only Jewish guy in history who's gone to every papal funeral in his lifetime. So Pope John Paul II dies, and my Catholic wife, Audrey, was so excited about this. Not only was it going to be another trip to Rome, but I'm going to set the record. And wouldn't you know it, on that very night, her father, my father-in-law, passes away. And now it's like the marriage or the record. What do I do? And she actually encouraged me to go. She said, Dad'll never know. He's not here anymore. And I said, the rest of the family will. So I lost my record, and the next Pope resigned. So we haven't had a funeral since, but I get an asterisk for this one.
That's great. We actually we have photos in the office of the visit of Pope John Paul II to the nuns chapel, so we'll have to look for you in those. We have numerous photos, and also an alum shared some of those with us this year that are in the archive. The bathrooms and the crucifixes, by the way, are still on the walls in the rooms. That's something that the nuns require us to keep up, and it definitely creates a certain context for the students as they come in. And the bathrooms were recently redone, but they are still the shower and the bathroom is all one space there, so it still has a rustic feel even if it's been redone. Thank you. So, Liz, would you like to tell us a little bit or respond in some way to these questions?
Certainly. I won't go into the papal visits because I will never even be able to touch Danny's record, though I do remember we had tickets to a papal audience. We went to not the outdoor ones, but they had the large indoor auditorium, and we had to get there several hours before, as you still do. And just by happenstance, we were all filing into these long rows, and with all my classmates, and I said, oh, I'm never going to be able to see. We're so far back. And the way that I went in, I ended up at the aisle. And back then, the photographers would come and take pictures, and you'd have to go into Vatican City to look at negatives, which I try to explain to my daughter, who's 16, what a negative is. Some sort of prehistoric way that we took photos, I assure her. And there was a picture caught at the exact moment where Pope John Paul II is holding, where, you're reaching out, and it's such a great picture. I wish I could remove the very high and curly 1988 hair, but it's forever, it will stay there. And then when I went back for my 3 years most recently, I was able to serve as the FBI's liaison to the Vatican. So I got to go back there many times and really immerse myself in the significant art that's just there and all the little niches of, the entire Vatican City. But with regards to study abroad programs, and I'm also very cognizant of what Jane and Tony were talking about with the cost of these programs, and how very lucky I was as well to go, and that I know with some students, can't go on study abroads if they're in the sciences or if their classes don't allow it, like political science. So I'm glad again that was changed, because I did avail myself of several political science courses when I was there. But it is such a tremendous opportunity because it really does open your mind to a more global, more feeling, more enthusiastic outlook, I think, on the world. So, we're coming from a large Western power. America is great. We think it's the greatest place. And to go and immerse yourself and learn language, culture, food ways, it really does give you or build in you a skill set that you can apply to any job. And I think it creates, and I know sometimes lately this word is overused, but resilience. So in my job, we tend to move a lot, and we have one daughter. And I remember fretting, when she was in first grade, oh, we have to move to DC, or we're going to move here or there. And each move has been better in some ways, challenging, but you have to just to go out and take that challenge and immerse yourself. Not leave old friends, but a lot of people I don't want to leave the campus. I have so many friends. It's perfect right now. But the friends that I made at the Rome campus semester, some of them I had not even met, even though we were all at Trinity at the same time. And some of my strongest friendships today. So I think it just creates joy and a little bit of perspective, as Sean mentioned, and resilience. And I think that's a great way. It's a great takeaway from both the liberal arts side of the institution, and just to do it in a city like Rome was exceptional.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up also this the opportunity for study abroad for students at Trinity across the board. I think it's really important. It's global experience is part of it's in the first few sentences of the college's mission statement. And there is, there is really this sense of responsibility in making sure that everyone who's studying at Trinity in different departments, and regardless of financial aid status, have the opportunity to study abroad, because it's a very important part of the experience of being there. So also in Rome, we've been working recently to create work study opportunities for students, which is not something that we've necessarily had historically or in a formal way. And I think that is also a helpful way of making sure that folks can spend a semester in Rome. Tony, would you like to comment on some of these thoughts?
Sure. I mean, there's just so much. It's really fantastic hearing it all. I mean, Danny and Liz, I can't, while you were going to, papal funerals and tracking down popes, I was going to see the Rolling Stones, Neil Young, and some other great concerts. So I don't have those kind of stories, but just in terms of what you're asking in you know, the various questions, what resonates with me is sort of what, you know, Sean said around a different worldview. I saw Jane's comment in the chat around empathy and understanding it. That's 100%. And I'll just give you a couple of my most memorable interactions. You know, I kind of went over as that kid who was probably the definition of ugly American, you know, completely, there's one way to do things. This was an only way, you know, kind of piece. And so, and I was reflecting on why is it? Because I feel like I was exposed to sort of a diversity, certainly a diversity of culture, but it wasn't diversity in sort of the traditional sense, right? I'm Catholic. I'm put into the center of Catholicism. I'm a white male. There's a lot of it wasn't like sort of diversity in that way, but the diversity of thought, which I think sometimes is really what you're after in creating diversity, was everywhere. So for me, some of my you know, great interactions were dinners. I remember with a gentleman who I came to love, that was a general in the army for Italy, and was in a Russian concentration camp. And he would tell me these stories, and it would just change my whole perspective of the history. I came from Hartford from sort of an American point of view to the history in another point of view. I got to the point where I was actually brought in by Swartamauer to talk to some nuns that were cloistered that didn't speak Italian. They were only English, and they wanted me to be able, you know, talk. So I got a firsthand view of just talking to people in terms of why they would cloister themselves, you know, for their lives, and, you know, praying for them and getting sort of that perspective. I had friends who were Israelis, and just sitting with them and them having to leave and being sad because they had to go back and fight because they were in a rotational, you know, program in the army at Israel. These were all sort of just whole new perspectives for me. And really to see, like, just my Italian friends to give me an approach that would say, hey, look, you know, you Americans live to work, we Italians work to live, and just sort of getting that whole cultural difference worldview. And then what does it do, right? I mean, it creates empathy. You start putting yourself in other people's shoes. And that's something that's carried with me for both, you know, myself and my career. The final point I'll make, and really on the benefits of a study abroad program, is, you know, I mean, these are all great stories that we have and great experiences. We're logged on, but I don't think everybody gets those experiences, right? I mean, my kids went away and they had a fun time, but they'd be talking a lot more about, you know, the Irish pub that they hit and the time that they did whatever. And there was a lot of experience. So I don't know that everybody gets the immersion and gets all the benefits that I'm hearing here, which is why I love the things that you and your colleagues are doing, Stephen. I mean, I love the fact that you have a work study program. I really like the work that Francesco does on the internship program to get people working on those things. I really support the move to having diverse, you know, housing and getting Italian students in with, you know, Trinity students. I mean, the more things you can do, because there is that default, right? You can just sort of hang out with your friends that are your fellow students, go down to the Irish pub, have a few drinks, go back and rinse and repeat and get to a few places, and not really take advantage of all that there is to offer. So all the efforts that you guys are doing to really expand that, I applaud.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we're very excited about some of those initiatives like the Italian Living Project, to have students live with Italian students and sort of immediately connect with a group off campus, and still have that experience on campus with friends they might meet from Trinity and visiting schools, which is also an extremely important part of the semester, but really be able to get out and have some of those, you know, autonomous experiences like you were talking about, and get to know folks from different countries, Italy and other countries, and Rome being a big international city. Jane, could you add a few comments, and then we'll move to the word cloud before concluding things.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. So to build on Tony's point and the empathy, and there's probably some folks from my semester who are going to out me anyway, but I had a Italian boyfriend the entire time I was in Rome. And one of the ways that I built empathy, so I thought, picked up on Italian, but I showed up not speaking any Italian. He spoke English, but when we would go out with his friends, I wouldn't understand everything like most people wouldn't who are learning a new language. And I can still feel the visceral frustration of a conversation going on around me and not knowing what was being said, and knowing, like, picking up that it was important, right? As only someone who was there with a bunch of guys, including one she was dating, and you're the only girl. And I knew I wanted to know. And I also had a moment where I traveled with a bunch of my friends to northern Italy, and we got separated, and I made a mistake. We were just early in our time in Italy, and I bought a coffee at the counter, and then I sat down with it. Huge faux pas, right? I paid the wrong amount, made a huge mistake. And again, right, I knew I had done something wrong, didn't speak the language. And as I had said, my grandmother, my great-grandmother immigrated, and I could sort of all of a sudden put myself in the shoes of people who are in a different country, knowing there was something you were doing wrong, knowing a connection you weren't making. And my view of immigrants, their intelligence, their contributions in their story, particularly, as I think folks know, I think you said it at the beginning, I've served in public office, and I'm not going to get political here, but there are lots of issues around immigration in our country. My perspective of what it feels like to have intelligent thoughts in your head that you cannot express because you don't speak the language was one of the most searing experiences in my life, and one that I have tried to hold with me, to realize that just because someone cannot say something in your language does not mean that they are not as intelligent as you are. And those are the kind of experiences, to Tony's point, you don't get. So first of all, you can't get them if you don't go abroad. One of the great realizations is, I guess, only a kid from North Adams, Sean, who didn't exactly even realize just how clueless they were, right, when they showed up. But there was a great exchange rate when I went to Italy. I made money by going to Italy when they did all whatever they do in financial aid. Because of what my financial aid package was, I actually had more money. The financial aid office had to give me a little bit of cash. Even my parents were blown away. So I actually made out by going to Italy. But those types of experiences, I think, have a profound impact on you for the rest of your life.
Thank you so much, Jane.
It sounds like you should have run for treasurer, Jane, in Massachusetts.
I should not be running for anything because my husband is in the next room.
Well, thank you all for sharing all of your insights and memories with us. We won't close. We'll have a look at the word cloud. We probably won't have enough time to really get into much of that, but let's see what some of your fellow alums have shared, and maybe it's something we can have discuss for a moment. So I'll share the screen here. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Let's see. Nuns bun seems to be the biggest one. So the nuns buns, obviously from the lunches and dinners there. Livio is a big one. Food, of course. We've in the chat, food has come up a number of times. I think, Danny, you're having an influence on that a little bit. Maybe we could talk just for a moment, if anyone remembers a favorite restaurant or meal or experience eating in Italy from your time in Rome?
The best food I've ever had in my life, hands down, was eating over Francesco's house. I still remember him having me over because I was in another country for Christmas and stuff, and having me over for the 7 fishes that his father did. That was just unbelievable, and his mother was just a ridiculous cook. So it just beat any restaurant or anything that you could ever have gone to.
Anyone else?
Danny, they're going to make you say what your favorite restaurant then or now is. I think you're not going to escape without that.
This is gonna, I mean, it's hard to get a bad meal in Rome for sure. And I love so many aspects of Rome, but I would just remember how much fun I would have when a bunch of us would go to a pizzeria called Da Buffetto, not too far from Piazza Navona. And you would wait in line and sit down with a bunch of strangers. Maybe if you're lucky, you got to meet some people. I had just never had that kind of experience with, you know, an egg cracked on top of the pizza and olives and artichokes and prosciutto and mushrooms and sausage. Just, I could go there right now and be happy.
Okay, we'll have to put that on the itinerary for spring 2022 for the reunion. Well, thank you all for all of your, you're an amazing group of alums. We're incredibly lucky to have you. And as Rome program director now, I can say that we're also extremely proud to count you among our alums. Today's event was the last of the series for the 50th anniversary in Rome virtually. But we are planning on trying to put together an event for the spring of 2022 or perhaps the summer of 2022. And we'll be in touch about that soon. But it's obviously a reunion online is different than one in person. And so we'd love to have you all back to Rome in person and to exchange and continue exchange memories and continue this conversation that we've started. So on a final closing note, I'd like to give special thanks to our panelist, Tony Scavangeli. This past year, the Scavangeli family established an endowed fund at Trinity. We haven't announced this yet, but to help support the Rome campus. And furthermore, Tony has agreed to match each $5,000 gift that will be made to this fund, dollar for dollar, up to $50,000 in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Rome program. So this endowed fund, which we're very grateful for, is designated for supporting the Rome program activities and will help us to innovate and develop over the years. So our colleagues at Alumni Relations and the Office of Advancement will send you some information if you're interested in participating, Trinity and or visiting students. So thank you again, Tony. We're very grateful. Thank you again to all of the panelists. I've read things written by you or heard you on podcasts, seen interviews on television, or read things written about you and met some of you in person. And it was a real pleasure to connect with you virtually today and hear some of your stories and perspectives on Rome. So grazie mille. We hope to see you soon in Rome, and arrivederci.
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 Ciao.